Okay, so we're just going to pick back up here. This is just masking an object. Once you understand how to do this, this will help you with the kind of the project that you have to do. So I showed you about the brushes and everything. Now let's just go ahead and mask this out. So yeah, maybe I want to kind of get this perimeter. I think determining what gets cut, what doesn't. I don't know. This is a really interesting. This is like a. Is it an old? Who knows? It could be a church. It's neat, really like long kind of logia like. So yeah, maybe we'll just kind of try to mask this whole thing out. Don't worry, it won't take long because I'm using the shift click. Okay, I'm not freehanding it. So I'm not going around, even around circles. I'm not going around and trying with my hand or my mouse and doing this by hand. I could, it's not bad, but if you have a really long, a lot of interesting, there's a much quicker way to do it. It's just by using really short, fast, straight lines. Okay, so um, now, if you're doing like hardcore like magazine covers where you're doing like serious masking, sure. At that level, you're doing a lot of handwork and you're like a talent that you're the advertisement agency is using. This is just more for architectural purposes and for rapid deployment of visuals. So that's the whole point here. So let's punch this out. Let's punch this out from the background. Okay, so it's a freestanding building. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around this perimeter. What I mean by shift click is I click, I hold shift, and I click, and it just generates a straight line segment. Okay, right. So let's do that. Okay, I'm just going to start here. Again, I'm going to start. I might even pull back a little bit. I might zoom out slightly. Okay, just I'd like to see a little bit more of what I'm working towards. Okay, so I'm gonna hit this shift click, pinch shift. I'm always just shift clicking. I don't know. I guess we'll go. We'll go straight across here. Okay, and then I'm not going to get into the detail yet. I'm just going to get kind of inside there. The diameter of the brush helps me too. It actually has a certain amount of pass. It can remove a lot pretty quickly. So, and then I'm not going to get into the nooks here yet. But the key here is I'm just going around and punching out kind of a general thing. I could use actually the polygon lasso tool to begin to remove like the large sum. But I'm just going around and shift clicking. Okay. If I've gone too far over something, I can always recover it later. So I'm not worrying too much about that because I'm just masking. I'm not erasing it. These are really intricate structures, so I'm just going in. I'm going to cover this really quickly. So I've gone around the entire kind of perimeter. Shift click, right? I'm not freehanding it. I'm not having to freehand. That just allows me to pass a lot of distance really quickly. Okay, so that's kind of the first pass in a sense. Now what I might do just to show you, I would maybe take the lasso and just select now in the blue where I've gone through it. Let's go into the blue. I like the wand tool or the lasso tool because it's almost like putting tape down when you're masking, like in like a house or something trim. Now I've got that down. Now if I actually invert the selection, Control Shift I, and I go back to my brush, notice nothing will encroach on that, so I can actually bump up like say this huge, right, and just pop this all out real quick, right. So now I'm all right. Like already I'm looking much more, yeah, like it's something is there. It would almost work. It would almost pass as a collage element. Like if you look at the tradition of architectural masking in collage, it's not necessarily meticulous. I think Callejas LCLA definitely has a much more intricate approach to it than the tradition. So Yeah, so then I can kind of deselect, Control D, deselects everything. And now, yeah, so now you can get a sense of the general idea, right? This thing begins to freestand. If I introduce, let me now, just for fun, let's just in place now, just to show you the general idea, a background image. Perhaps it would be the Sahara Desert. No? So I can throw that in here behind it. Oh, sorry. Let me do that one more time. Sahara, Sahara. Okay. I'm going to drag it underneath. Okay. And we can see I missed a bunch up here. No problem. I'm just going to go back. Now, when I go back to want to mask something out of this, now I'm going to call this layer or something, by the way. I'm going to call it the um, masked object. That way I know I can always go back here and find this if I need to continue to mask it. So I make sure this is selected, okay, and then I just go back to brush mode and I'm going to just punch the rest of that out, okay. So now here we are, kind of already in a certain kind of territory. Is it convincing? No, not exactly. You know, it's not clean enough to be convincing. From a distance, maybe. No, but I would encourage you to take it to the next level, and the next level is getting tighter with the mask. I'm not going to spend the time on this video to show. I will show you a piece of it. I'll go around this top edge just to show you the shift click. So we'll cover some of this. And the other thing that kind of happens too is we lose a little bit of shadow. So we could kind of maybe try to reproduce a certain amount of that shadow with a fake shadow. So let me just really quickly kind of go in and craft this. We'll go around a little bit more with a little bit more specificity just to see how I work. So I'm going to go and I'm going to go in here. I'm going to knock this out. And now I'm just going to go around and shift click. I'm just shift clicking. I'm not freehanding. These are essentially just a series of small line segments. But with enough of them, I can start to round off the edges. Oops, probably too much. And I'm looking for that kind of consistent edge quality, right? Where it's an even amount of, like we wanted some shadow on the rim there, no? Just shift clicking, okay? I'm going through and really trying to craft. Maybe I want to kind of like try to emphasize something, so I might remove a little bit more over here just to show that, yeah, I want this kind of this fence to kind of like have this appearance that it's like kind of standing up. But again, I want to kind of remove the same amount. I'm kind of like looking at really this black edge, and I want the same kind of edge. If I feel like it took too much off, I can always bring it back with the X tool, by just swapping that black and white. That's all I'm doing. X on my keyboard is just swapping between black and white. Okay, it's probably still too much black on this edge. I'm going to reduce it a little bit, right? Just shift clicking and moving around. So I'm going to zoom around. Yeah, this grass is kind of interesting. We'll keep it. Maybe I'll punch out intermittently little pieces of it so that it's not such a straight line. It has a more of a grassy kind of an effect. Okay, I could use a special brush to do that. In this case, it's fairly quick. I'm just going to start kind of like dab at the edge here just to produce a kind of an edge. That's still pretty cheesy, but I need to keep moving. So right, I'm just going to go around, shift click, right, go around and hit all this. I kind of, I kind of like the path. I'm just continuing to shift click. Now I'm going to keep some of the shadow in here. I actually think that this shadow in here will give us this impression that it is actually like on the. To me, it already feels like it's on the surface of this kind of desert scape. Okay. I might, yeah, I might just, let's see, if we imagine a source of light, what I might do is punch kind of the front side out of this. Right? But as you can see, this is a very fast. I'm working very fast. It's actually probably, when we zoom out, it's going to be enough. I do wonder though if I want to keep somehow kind of the shadow. I don't know how it would look. I would need to experiment with that. But for now, shift clicking and just knocking these out. It's almost like a series of straight cuts. Yeah, I would have to play with that, how the shadow might work on the ground, but I think we're kind of getting somewhere already, right? Already it's looking more convincing. The only last thing I could say is maybe we want to drop a little bit of false shadow, so I can see when I zoom out, and I can see what needs to be removed more clear. So I recommend kind of going in and out, zooming out, get a sense of the form, what's happening inside of here. Again, I can just quickly notch. I want to keep some of those things, but I can kind of simplify this a little bit probably. How much time you spend on this is up to you and how well you manage your time. The more time you have, the better this will be. But it doesn't mean you should dilly-dally either. There is such a thing as wasting time in this. Dilly-dallying, you'll discover that there's things that you might end up doing with masking that no one will notice. So there's a point where, yeah, you want to keep a certain integrity about the quality of it, but there is a point where it is just a communication tool, and you need to decide how much you need to mask and what can be omitted. Now look at the shadow, the way the shadow is being cast off of this little kind of dimple in the roof. I think that's a really good indication. Look at how long the shadows are. So we kind of lose the shadow, right, once we lose this. So let's just talk about that real quick. This takes time. I'm going to go fairly quick. It may not come out as well as I'd like, but I just want to show you the technique. Let me just bump these out real quick. I'm just kind of bugging me. I want to kind of clean these out a little bit. Okay. So yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I could even punch, like, what if I just get rid of the green? But see, I kind of like working from a distance here. I feel like I have more like a stronger sense of the entire image. Okay, so something like that. Whatever. It's fine. It's still not exactly convincing. I'd really want to go in and notch out a lot of this stuff, right? But when I do that, I lose a lot of the shadow too. So we could put a false shadow in here. So all that means is like putting another layer. So I put a layer above the desert layer, but below the masked layer. So I'll just click on that, add a layer. Okay, I'll call this specifically so I know where it is. It's the fake shadow. Now, when you're working in color, shadows are never gray, guys. Shadows in real life are never gray. They're actually the complementary color of the light source. So if the light source is yellow, then what is the complement of yellow? Purple. So there's actually a fair amount. The shadow is actually composed of the purple hues. You can identify that, and when you do, anytime you do you can use the eyedropper tool. Is it I? I can't even remember now. They've buried the eyedropper. Yeah. If you do an eyedropper, look at the tonal. I do an eyedropper on the shadow. This is just like, right. Look at the color. You know, it's the opposite of the color of the light source. So if the light source was somewhat orange in this case, obviously it was at sunset or in the morning. The color's got blue, a lot of blue in it. It's not gray. Okay, so I have that color here. So I use the eyedropper. I'm just gonna use that color. I'm gonna use the brush tool. I am painting now. I'm just painting, and I'm going to speculate on a certain kind of shadow. Okay, it's underneath the other layer, right? And obviously, it's not going to be. So it's not going to be rounded on the corners. So actually, I will mask. I'll just throw a mask on my shadow. I mask all the time, so I just mask on that. Now I can just, right, I can Uh, I can craft, I can sharpen up that edge just by knocking some of it away. Okay. So yeah, whatever. I don't know. That's not probably quite right. You're gonna have other shadows over here. Let me go back and paint. You're gonna have shadows back in here from this building, from this side of the building. We are gonna have shadows in here. Probably have a little shadow on this wall here. Okay. So right. So we you know, I need to clean that up. I'm not gonna take the time. Maybe maybe there's a bump there, but right, we already see now. I'm already more convinced that that is. I'm okay with this. You know, the shadow would taper. It would. Well, it's a pretty hard shadow. It's really late in the day. It looks like, so it's a really hard shadow. So this is fine. Now, what I will do though is I'll use a blend mode. I will round. I'm gonna round like that corner a little bit. I'll use a blend mode. So I'm gonna. This is the next thing is blend modes. I wanna blend the shadow with the under the background. So I have the image, this layer selected. Blend modes are here. I'm gonna just I wanna mat I want it to kind of sink in. I want some of the color information from the ground to actually appear uh, to mix with the shadows. So these blend modes can be I can select one and then I can use the arrow key to cycle through them. Right, and I can, yeah, okay. I mean that will that actually contain, and then what I might do is just drop the opacity down a little bit. No, not too much, not too much, but something like that. Okay, is that convincing? Well, when I zoom out, still not. I don't think that shadow's right. But that's the that's the idea. You spend some time kind of analyzing the way the shadows would bounce off the object. But this is just the point is to show you, okay, how do you get a fake shadow? And you put it in as a layer underneath. It slides in into the masked area just fine, and it's on top of the other layer. So I'll switch gears and talk more specifically about how to bring in the model into the composite in the next video.